When was your gut feeling actually right? I was 16 when I saved my entire class. Nobody liked our science teacher, Mr. Daniels. He was strict, boring, and gave way too much homework. So when he announced a special overnight science trip to the mountains, everyone was shocked. This is a rare opportunity, he said, stone-faced. Only 20 students can attend. The trip sounded amazing, hiking, camping under the stars. And the best part? No parents allowed. As head of the science department, I'll be the only chaperone, Mr. Daniels explained. We need to travel light. Something about this felt wrong. Mr. Daniels had never shown any interest in field trips before. And no other teachers or parents involved? That seemed against school policy. But everyone was too excited to question it. I almost stayed quiet. But during lunch, I voiced my concerns to my friend. You worry too much, she said. It's just a camping trip. But why is he suddenly doing this? And why no other adults? She rolled her eyes. Because parents are annoying. This way, we can actually have fun. Still, I couldn't shake the feeling. So I started asking questions. First, I stopped by the science department office. Which mountainside is Mr. Daniels booking for the trip? I asked casually. The secretary looked confused. What trip? That was strange. If the trip were official, the department would know. Next, I pulled out last year's yearbook. Mr. Daniels' bio claimed he'd been teaching here for 15 years. I showed it to my dad. He frowned. That's not right. When I went here, the science head was Dr. Fletcher. She'd been there forever. I looked her up online. Dr. Fletcher had only retired 6 months ago, after 30 years at the school. Mr. Daniels had started this semester. Why lie about something so easy to verify? I checked the school website for his credentials. Nothing, just Mr. Daniels, science department. I began watching him closely. He never spoke to other teachers, ate lunch alone in his classroom, and always kept the blinds shut. 2 days before the trip, I saw something truly bizarre. Mr. Daniels loading boxes from the chemistry stockroom into his car. Why would he need school chemicals for a nature hike? That night, I called the nature center listed on our permission slips. Hi, I'm just confirming our school's reservation for this Saturday, I said. What school? The ranger asked. Lincoln High. For Mr. Daniels' science group. My heart dropped. There's no booking under that name, the ranger said. And we don't allow overnight school groups without prior approval. You said Mr. Daniels. We don't have any staff interactions or reservations under that name. I hung up, hand trembling. Everything about this trip was wrong. I took screenshots of the permission slips and photos of the boxes in his trunk. Then I went to my parents. At first, they brushed it off. Maybe there was a mistake, or maybe the school arranged it late. But when I showed them the secretary's reaction, the lack of information online, and the ranger's denial, my dad grew serious. Something's off, he said. You're not going. And we're calling the school board first thing in the morning. But morning wasn't soon enough. The next day, Mr. Daniels called an emergency after-school meeting for the selected 20 students. When I arrived home, 2 of my classmates had already texted. Meeting was weird. He told us not to tell our parents about the new pickup location. He said phones weren't allowed. My dad had already called the principal, who, unsurprisingly, was just as confused. There's no official trip, she said. Mr. Daniels hasn't submitted anything. That night, my parents drove me to the police station. I gave a full statement, feeling half ridiculous, half terrified. Would anyone believe me? It was all suspicion. No crime had actually happened, yet. But the next morning, before school even started, police cars surrounded the parking lot. Mr. Daniels was arrested as he arrived, calm as ever. In his trunk, sedatives, zip ties, and several containers labeled hazardous. We later found out that Mr. Daniels wasn't even his real name. He had stolen the identity of a retired teacher, forged documents, and passed all background checks using sophisticated software. His real name? Evan Granger. A former lab technician fired for unethical experiments on people. The school was in shock. Parents pulled their kids out for weeks. But my classmates looked at me differently now. Not like the weird quiet girl who asked too many questions. But like the girl who saved them all. Even after Mr. Daniels, no, Evan Granger, was taken away, The fear didn't vanish. In fact, it only deepened. The news spread fast. Reporters camped outside the school gates. Parents demanded answers. Students whispered rumors in the halls. But there was one thing nobody talked about out loud. Who else knew? Because the deeper the investigation went, the more unsettling it became. The keycard logs showed Evan had access to the chemistry lab at night. But the janitor, Mr. Benson, said he never saw him after school. Not once. Cameras? Under maintenance. For 2 months. One teacher, a substitute for English, resigned the day after the arrest. No warning. Just packed up and vanished. That night, I received an anonymous message in my locker. He wasn't working alone. Be careful who you trust. I showed it to the principal. She looked alarmed but told me not to worry. Said it was probably a prank. But I knew what I felt. The same gut feeling from before. That cold chill of truth trying to crawl its way into the light. So I started watching again. This time, everyone. Teachers, staff, even students. Especially the 20 of us who were on the trip list. Because one of us had lied. One afternoon, I cornered Lily, a girl who'd been weirdly quiet since the arrest. Her eyes darted around the hallway. I asked her straight. Why didn't you tell anyone about the new pickup spot? She froze. Because. I didn't think it was that strange, she whispered. Mr. Daniels said it was safer. And that you were the one causing problems. Me? He said you were trying to sabotage the trip out of jealousy. That's when it hit me. He had been planning this for longer than anyone realized. And not just the trip, but me. He knew I was watching him. And he had tried to turn them all against me before I could stop him. But what if someone else had taken his place in the shadows? And what if I was still being watched? The arrest should have ended everything. But it didn't. It just opened a door to something deeper. Something darker. 2 days after Evan Granger's arrest, our school installed new security cameras. And that's when the janitor, Mr. Benson, went missing. No resignation. No goodbye. Just gone. At first, no one noticed. But when I passed the science wing late one afternoon, I caught a glimpse of something strange. A classroom light was on, Mr. Daniels's old room. I peeked through the window, empty. Except for a single object sitting on the desk. A glass vial. I entered slowly. Everything was just as he had left it. But the vial had a note underneath. Not everything can be contained. That night, I couldn't sleep. My mind raced. If someone had returned to his room, they had a key. And access. Which meant the school still wasn't safe. I met with the principal the next day. Told her everything. She smiled tightly and said, "We appreciate your concern, but we have it under control." But she didn't ask to see the vial. She didn't ask what the note said. And then I realized, she already knew. Later that evening, I received a message on an encrypted app I didn't recognize. If you keep digging, you'll be next. Let sleeping ghosts rest. But I wouldn't. I couldn't. Because I had just discovered something buried in the yearbook archive, a photo from 6 years ago. It showed a science class field trip. And there, in the back row, a man who looked exactly like Mr. Daniels. Only this time, he was listed as the bus driver. How many identities had he used? How many schools had he targeted? And how long had he been doing this? The truth was bigger than just one trip. And I was already in too deep to walk away. I waited until the school emptied out that Friday. The halls felt heavier after dark, like they remembered too much. I slipped into the science wing, heart pounding, flashlight in hand. Mr. Daniels' room had been locked since the investigation. But I'd watched the janitor's routine for weeks. Before he disappeared, he always left a spare key behind a loose ceiling tile in the custodian closet. It was still there. I crept into the room, locking the door behind me. Everything was just as I remembered. Except one thing, a cabinet drawer under the lab counter was slightly ajar. Inside were files. Folders, labeled with names, our names. The 20 students chosen for the trip. I pulled mine out, photos, class schedules, notes about behavior, even my medical records. I wasn't just on a list. I was being studied. Each file had a colored sticker. Mine was green. Others were red. A few, just 2, were black. One of them was Lily's. I flipped through the black folder. Her entire disciplinary history was inside, but also notes on her parents, home address, and even her DNA profile. Why? Suddenly, I heard a noise outside the door. A soft click. The handle twisted slowly. I shut the drawer, killed my flashlight, and ducked behind the teacher's desk. Someone entered. Their steps were light, measured. Not a student. I held my breath as the figure walked across the room, straight to the cabinet I'd just closed. They opened it, paused. Then, quietly said, "I know you're in here." I bolted. Out the back door, through the emergency exit, straight into the night. I didn't stop running until I reached home. That night, I didn't sleep. I scanned and encrypted every page I'd photographed. Sent copies to a trusted journalist contact of my dad's. But one message appeared on my phone as I finished. "You should have left it alone. There's no going back now." The next morning, I woke up to silence. No alerts, no emails, no messages. My phone had been wiped overnight. Factory reset. Everything, gone. Except for one photo left in the gallery. A screenshot. My school ID. Marked with a green dot. And beneath it, one sentence in all caps. Phase 1, passed. I raced to my dad's office. His journalist contact? Out of town. No one could explain how the files vanished from his inbox. Not even the backup cloud I used worked anymore. Whatever this was, it went beyond a rogue teacher. It was organized, funded, protected. That day at school, I tried to act normal. But Lily wouldn't look at me. 2 others from the trip list were missing. Excused absences, they said. But their lockers were empty. Their names weren't called during roll. At lunch, I finally cornered Lily. "You were on the blacklist," I whispered. She stiffened. Then, barely audible. "I didn't volunteer. They chose me." "Who?" I asked. She glanced around. "They called it a behavioral experiment. Said we were helping research something important. But when I wanted out, they threatened my mom. Said she'd lose her job. Said accidents could happen." That's when I noticed the bruise on her arm. She was scared, but not of Mr. Daniels. Of something else. That night, I broke into the school again. This time, I went to the admin server room. If records were being deleted, they had to be rerouted somewhere. And that's when I found it. A hidden folder labeled Project Eden. Inside, names of students going back 10 years. Green, red, and black-coded tags. Testing logs. Psychological assessments. Teacher recruitment contracts. And a signature on the bottom of every approval form. The school principal. I stared at the screen, the principal's name repeating on every authorization form like a curse, Dr. Elaine Mercer. The woman who told me not to worry. The one who smiled too calmly when I reported the vial. The same person who claimed the school was handling it. She hadn't just known. She had signed off on it. Behind me, the server room door creaked. I ducked behind the nearest cabinet. A shadow moved across the flickering hallway light. Footsteps, slow, deliberate. A hand brushed the doorknob, but didn't open it. Then silence. I waited 5 minutes before exhaling and transferring every file to my USB. When I got home, I read them all. Project Eden wasn't just local. It was part of a private research initiative tied to a biotech foundation. A study on group behavior under controlled psychological stress. Schools were recruited under the table. Staff were paid bonuses to participate and keep quiet. The green list students were considered stable controls. The red list were students prone to anxiety or rebellion. And the black list? Volatile, manipulable, disposable. That night, I finally told my parents everything. My mom cried. My dad wanted to go to the police, but I stopped him. If we go now, they'll bury it. We need evidence they can't destroy. So we made a plan. A public one. The next day, I wore a wire and walked into Dr. Mercer's office with one simple line. "I know what Project Eden is. And I know you made me a test subject." She didn't flinch. Instead, she closed her laptop slowly, smiled, and said, "Then I guess it's time you saw Phase 2. Dr. Mercer's office fell into silence after her chilling words. "Then I guess it's time you saw Phase 2. She tapped her keyboard twice. The window behind her dimmed, becoming a one-way mirror. And then, like something out of a dystopian film, the wall beside it slid open. A hidden door. In our school. Behind the principal's desk. "Come," she said calmly. "If you really want answers, stop sneaking around. Walk through the front door." Every instinct screamed at me to run. But I didn't. I followed her into the darkness. The hallway beyond was cold and sterile, lit by low, humming lights. We passed through 2 locked checkpoints before entering a chamber lined with monitors. Dozens of them. Watching classrooms, hallways, students. Some I didn't even recognize. "This is Eden's observation core," she said. "We monitor behavior, reactions, patterns. Your file was flagged months ago. You're the perfect anomaly. Resistant to suggestion, aware, curious, dangerous." I turned to her. "You were experimenting on us?" She smiled. "We were investing in you." She handed me a black folder. Inside, my profile. Detailed notes, psychological breakdowns, video logs. But at the back, something new. A letter with the Eden seal. "You have been selected for advancement. Welcome to Tier 2. "What is this?" I asked, heart pounding. She stepped closer. "A choice. You've already proven you're not like the others. Join us, help shape the next phase of Eden, or walk away. But know this, walk away, and we'll label you compromised." I looked at the cameras. At the data. At the truth. She held out her hand. "You want to change the system? This is how it starts." And for a moment, I actually considered it. I didn't take her hand. Not yet. I needed time, so I lied. "I'll think about it," I said, trying to steady my voice. Dr. Mercer nodded slowly, as if she expected that. "No pressure. But think quickly. You'll receive your final decision packet in 48 hours. After that, the offer expires. And so does our patience." She led me back upstairs like nothing had happened. In the hall, students rushed to class. Teachers laughed at the copier. The world looked normal. But I knew the truth now. And I was running out of time. That night, I opened the packet. Inside were instructions, a non-disclosure contract, and access codes. There was also a warning. "Do not share this. Violation will result in elimination from the program." My hands trembled. Elimination didn't sound metaphorical. So I called Lily. At first, she didn't answer. But after 10 minutes, she finally whispered, "I got one too. Red folder. They're dividing us." We met at the abandoned park behind school. Quiet. No cameras. No one watching, at least we hoped. She wasn't just scared. She was shaking. "They said if I decline, they'll release my medical files online. I'll lose my scholarship. My mom will lose her job." We both knew what this meant. This wasn't just about experiments anymore. It was leverage, control, recruitment. I showed her my folder. "You're Tier 2, she said softly. "You could help us. You could get inside." And suddenly, that became the new plan. I would accept the offer. Play along. Gain access to Eden's core. And destroy it from the inside. If I could survive long enough, I signed the contract. Not because I believed in their mission, but because I wanted to end it. Once I entered Tier 2, everything changed. I was assigned a private mentor, given access to encrypted files, psychological tools, and a quiet room with no cameras, or so they claimed. I played the part perfectly. They gave me a fake ID badge, labeled Observer Class Beta. I was told to select a new batch of students for behavioral calibration. The idea? Predict reactions under pressure. But I knew what they really meant. Who will crack, and who can be broken? What they didn't know was that I was uploading everything. Each night, I sent files through a rotating proxy network to that journalist my dad trusted. He was back. And he was ready. Then came the Eden Gala, an annual internal celebration held off campus, in a sleek, glass tower owned by their biotech sponsor. All Tier 2 inductees were expected to attend. It was the perfect moment. Lily had done her part too, gathering testimonies from others, even from 2 red list students who had escaped the program and were willing to go public. The night of the gala, I wore the tracker. I uploaded one final data set. Names, recordings, protocols, signed contracts. And then I triggered the backup plan. A full data leak. Sent to every major news outlet, education board, and the Department of Justice. Right in the middle of Dr. Mercer's keynote speech, her microphone cut out. The projector behind her flashed. And every screen filled with Eden's secrets. Photos, videos, student files. The truth. Chaos erupted. Phones rang. Alarms blared. By morning, Eden's leadership had been detained. Dr. Mercer disappeared, but not for long. She was arrested trying to cross the border. My name? All over the news. They called me the whistleblower, the survivor, the student who exposed the machine. But I wasn't a hero. I was just someone who listened to her gut and refused to stay silent. School resumed under new leadership. Eden was gone. But I'll never forget what they taught me in the shadows. Trust your instincts. Ask the questions. And when the system is broken, be the one who breaks it.